Welcome to the Intro to Motion Capture workshop. My name is Amber. I'm a production assistant here at the Media Commons.
My name's Luke. I'm also a production assistant here.
All right, so today for our workshop, we've got quite an agenda. First, we're going to talk about what motion capture is and how it's used in the professionally. Then we're going to learn what tools we're going to need to run a session at the Media Commons, specifically these areas. And we're going to have a demo to calibrate the room, to create a skeleton, record data, and export that data. So what is motion capture? Does anyone want to throw out what they know about it, or anything, like any shows or games that they know use motion capture? No? Come on. This is the short version?
Judging from the notes on the code, I'm guessing it records like phone positions, then it just export the coordinates of those nodes into the computer.
Yes, actually, yes. It records like points in space, and then through the process of what we're going to go through today, it will convert that into data to transfer to like characters or skeletons or things like that. Yeah.
I know motion capture is a lot of times used so that 3D animations and acting can look much more realistic, especially in game when it can be very chunky. And sometimes it's used actually more as like a reference for the artist behind it anyway, but either way it's very useful.
Yeah. It's like what people prefer if they're doing something more realistic, is a little bit faster, trying to get accurate movements for like humans. Yeah. Anything else? Any like shows that they know that like you think?
Detroit Computer.
I mean, yes. Avatar, yes. That whole show is just all motion capture, or the movie. Right. So why motion capture? Avatar. Why motion capture? As Kenya said, it's hyper-realistic. You can get really realistic movements super easily. It's common in things with high budgets, such as games and films. It's also quick and efficient. It reduces the inaccuracy of an artist's keyframing animation, because it's like taking the exact movements of a real person. You can also get natural facial expressions and body language. This provides more authenticity for your characters. You can get a much more, I guess uncanny look to your whatever you're motion capturing. So in this Media Commons, the required tools that you're going to need for a session. What's already set up here are the motion capture cameras. So all these blue lights are motion capture cameras. They're set up across this entire space. And the Motive software is installed on our computers. So you can see that TV right there is going to be showing the Motive software, and this is a presentation. What you need to bring to your session is a hard drive to save your data. All of our computers here get wiped weekly, so if you don't want to lose your data, you want to save it on an external hard drive. And bring a friend. You do need a technician to help you do motion capture. One person in a suit and one person at the computer to record your data. What you need to check out from us is quite a long list. First, you need the Motive dongle, which is right here. This is just the security key to get into the software on the computer. If you don't have this, you would not be able to open the software. Then you need the calibration wand and ground plane. So we have this here, the ground plane and calibration wand. These are used to calibrate the room so that the cameras know how the space is oriented. And finally, you need the mocap suit. So Luke here is decked out in the full hat, shirt, pants, and shoes, as well as gloves. And you need the X-Space passive markers. So these are what the cameras look for whenever they're recording. And optional Velcro tape to help take down any loose fabric so that nothing gets in the way of the markers. So let's record mocap. To get started, you want to take the Motive dongle. So we have 3 types of dongle at the Media Commons. This is a body. Body is used to record data. We can also edit data. We have a body unlimited, which lets you record more than 3 skeletons. And we have a edit dongle, which allows you to edit your data. So it's already plugged into the computer there, but it's a USB-C, you plug it in, and when you see the light turn on, there's like 2 dots there, then you know it's working. Next, you need to open OptiTrack. Motive looks like, the icon looks like this. It's the software that we use to control the OptiTrack cameras, and it will be the software we're going to be using to record and play back our data. All right, so navigating OptiTrack is a little bit confusing, so if you direct your attention to this this monitor, we'll go over it a little bit. So there are 4 main areas on Motive. First, you can see this center place is all the cameras and your 3D view. You can see all the cameras are here, and they're viewing the space. You can also see the cameras down here, like specifically what they are seeing. On the right, we have the list of cameras. So you can see we have 16 cameras total, and that 16 is around just this area. You can also manage your assets if we have skeletons here, and properties of cameras as well, down here. And on the left, we have the calibration Docker, which is used to calibrate the space, the data Docker for your recordings, and the builder to build your skeleton. If you're ever unsure about how to navigate the space, Motive is really nice because it has presets for the workspaces. So you can see up here on the top, it has the calibration, the builder, the capture, and oh my god, and edit. Right? All right, so to start calibration, before your session, what you want to do is calibrate the cameras so that you know that the cameras are all speaking to each other properly and they all know that where they are in the space. And to do so, we're going to use the calibration wand and the ground plane.
Yeah.
So this is the calibration wand. It has 3 markers on the top at a very specific orientation that the cameras are looking for during calibration. So as Luke builds it, if you look to the Motive, all you gotta do is hit the calibration workspace and then hit, I wanna move those.
Yeah, I'm just gonna get everything out.
All right, before you hit new calibration, you need to make sure all of the markers that you want visible are hidden away. So you can see here, there's markers here that the cameras are seeing. That is the bag of markers over there, and you don't want that visible. Same with the wand that Luke is carrying. You can see there. You don't want that visible either when you first start when you make a new calibration.
Do we have anything visible?
Now that the scene is clear, we can hit new calibration. All right, so you can see that it's giving us errors. When I select the error, it shows camera 1, there's an error, and camera 12. This is because the way our cameras work is that they're looking for reflections. So right now, the errors are happening because the cameras are seeing reflections that might not be a marker, but it still sees it as kind of one. So what we want to do is mask them out. So I'm going to hit clear masks, which clears any previous masks that were done before. And you can see many of the cameras are seeing very bright things. A good visualization you can do is set a camera to grayscale and see this bright light is probably what the camera is seeing. So in order to clear that, we're going to make a new mask. And now that the cameras are all masked, there's no errors, and these red portions here are what is masked out. All right, continue. All right, now we can bring the wand out and start wanding. All right, so Luke is calibrating. The way you want to calibrate the cameras is with big figure-8 motions, big circular motions. The reason why we do this is that the cameras are collecting samples of each where the marker is in the space. You can see a visual representation of the cameras collecting samples with you see the light is green and blue. Green means that the camera has collected samples. If there is no samples, it's going to show as gray. If we select a camera, so if one of the cameras we want more samples for, and I select,
Select like 4 or 5.
it should show as yellow. But
Which one did you choose?
yeah, hold on.
Choose like 4.
So if you look to the UI, you can see that each camera here in the calibration docker are listed, and they have samples next to them. We want around 2,000 to 6,000 samples to get an accurate accession of the space. So it looks like we're in that zone. So I'm going to start calculating. Right, and he can stop wanding once we start calculating. It's going to take a little bit, but you can see the program is trying to figure out the orientation of where the cameras are and a visual of the wanding that Luke did. All right, so we got an overall result of exceptional. This is great. Very minimal errors. You hit the next.
Yeah. Oh.
All right,
Wait.
hit next. Okay, wait, can you go back?
Yes.
All right, so the reason why we want an exceptional overall result is that anything lower, you're going to introduce glitching. So this means that the camera can confuse itself, and when it sees a hand marker, it might snap away and then snap back, or it'll turn invert on itself. And if you want to avoid that, you do want to try to get an exceptional result. If you're not too concerned about that, then good, it's fine, but it's just weigh your options on how you want to record your data. All right, so I hit continue. Now we need to set the ground plane. So the ground plane is the way that the cameras figure out what is up and what is down. So you can see here in Motive, the cameras are all next to each other in the correct way, but they're slanted. So we're setting a ground plane to let the cameras know that they need to be level. So you can see here in the calibration, the z-axis is facing forward while the x-axis is facing to the side. You want to have the z-axis always facing forward just to make your life a little easier, so when you're exporting your data to other programs, the z-axis stays the same and your character is always facing forward. And it's not shown, but the y-axis is up and down. So I'm going to hit set ground plane. Ground plane is set. You can see the cameras are all oriented properly. Hit next.
Yes.
Great.
Yeah.
Move on to building a skeleton and capturing.
Yes. So now that you have set up the room, it is time to start building a skeleton. This is the builder window. It is where you use the Velcro markers to start creating your skeleton. You can also create rigid bodies, which would be for tracking solid objects that don't bend. Next. Oh, wait, yeah, next. Oh, I have the button, sorry. Yeah, so today we're going to be building a skeleton, which is how you sort of track a person and use that as an avatar. There are different skeleton types for different marker sets. Motive has some default marker sets or marker positions that it'll be able to recognize as a person. If you just put them in random places, Motive won't know what that is. So there's specific setups that you need to recreate so that Motive knows it's a person. For this one, we're going to be using baseline 41. Some other ones are core 50. Those numbers are just how many markers we're using. Yeah. Yeah. Next. Yeah. So then there's the asset panel, which previously we were using to look at our cameras. You can now use to look at skeletons. It'll show you all of your assets, so your skeletons, rigid bodies. You can then change their name, label them, and change the color, just so that you can help differentiate if you have more than one skeleton in your scene. Oh wait, go back to the 41. Back 2 slides. One more. Okay, so now we're actually going to start setting it up. An important thing to notice, so there's this little area that shows you what the setup is for a baseline 41. One thing you'll notice is that some of the trackers are purple and some of them are white. The key difference between those two is that the purple trackers are asymmetrical. So if you'll notice on the thighs, let me just get this right. Yeah. So on my left leg, I'm placing the tracker higher than I am on my right leg. That way Motive can sort of tell, what's the left side, what's the right side. And that's actually how it's able to tell what's forward and back. Another thing that's important is when you're placing markers on your joints, you need to, it's not like, see there's one for the knee. You can't really just place this anywhere. It's very important that you place it right where the center of rotation is. That's sort of how Motive is able to take these dots and create like a 3D skeleton underneath and know where that joint is. So something that I like to do, I'll use my finger to sort of feel where it's rotating and then just place the marker right there. Yeah.
Once again, these are presets that Motive already has. So if you're unsure about where any marker goes, you can just check this 3D model in the builder. While we put on the markers, you can see here that Motive is detecting markers. So right now it's like 17, 20. Our goal is to get 41 because earlier we mentioned we're using the baseline 41 template, which you can find here, right below the 3D model.
Yes. Wait. No. Wait. Yes. Sorry. Thank you. Yeah, because if I had left it on this side of the head, the skeleton's neck would have been snapped and facing the wrong direction. So thank you for that. Yeah, also one thing. This is where I usually mess up. There are way more tracking dots on your feet than you think there should be in relation to it. There are 5 on each foot, which in total is 10 out of the 41 trackers. So it's 3 in the front, 1 on the ankle, 1 on the heel. So just like a pro tip, if you're ever missing trackers, check your feet. That's probably where they're missing. Another thing. You just turn it around real quick so I remember the back. Yeah. Almost done.
You can see the numbers getting higher. It's Motive is looking for the markers in this specific orientation. The reason why it was flickering earlier is because it was seeing markers. It was seeing the markers in the bag, but it wasn't in the proper skeleton, like this way of orientating. So it was confusing itself. But now that it's a little bit more steady because we've got most of the markers on.
Just the arms and hands, I think.
While he's finishing that up, does anyone have any questions before we start recording? Or yes.
How do you know? I'm guessing that Motive has its own default for how many markers you should use and where they're placed. But do you ever find yourself having other for example, bigger companies use even more markers to get more detail on you, or is it not recommended?
look at the screen, there's different templates with more markers. So this one has 57 because it has fingers, or there's different numbers. We do recommend students to just stay at baseline 41. More markers does have a little bit more detail, but it's not like so drastically more that it's going to be like visibly like a difference. And when you're introducing more markers, you're introducing a little bit more complexity on like and chances of error. So staying with like 41 is probably like a safe way for people starting out and students.
All right, and then if you see on the builder, so we have enough, we're ready to capture. There's some options underneath for your pose. You could start in a T pose, another option is an A pose. The reason you would choose between the two is depending on how dynamic of like the movement for the scene that you're trying to capture. Typically, games that involve a lot of action will use T poses because it's easier for the skeleton to deform to have its arm over its head. A reason for an A pose, which is down like this, is if you have sort of less movement and not like characters moving all over the place, because it allows you to have more topology on the upper shoulder that isn't getting deformed as much. The farther you're like moving your joint from the default pose that you're rigging from, the more like topology that you need in that area. So games that have a lot of movement will usually start here because they're moving both up and down, whereas if you're doing more of like a hyper-realism scene where people are acting like humans normally do, their hands probably aren't going above their heads that much, and you can use an A pose. But yeah, so.
So we're going to go with a T pose. We're going to make Luke stand the center in T pose. You can see the markers are being detected. And let me rename the skeleton.
Yeah.
Luke. And I'm going to hit create. Right.
Sweet.
Now you can see.
Now it's working. Yeah. So yeah, once you have your T-pose working, it's really fun. First time you do it, I think I probably spent like 15 minutes just like looking at myself move around. It's a lot of fun. It is really cool. But once you're ready to actually start recording, you get to do data management, which is even more exciting. So under the data tab, it's really important that when you're recording, these takes by default have super obscure names that are literally just like the exact time of day that you're recording, which isn't very helpful if you need to go back and look at your files. So we highly suggest creating a folder for your session, and then two, within that for each take, make sure you're naming them things that make sense to you so that when you come back later, you can easily access the right takes. Sweet. Yeah, next. Yeah, again, organization. So once you're ready to go on to recording, you can change your take name down in that bottom menu, that record menu, right at the very bottom of your screen. You can change the name, you can see the length of your take, and then that classic little red recording circle is how you begin. When you are ready to begin recording, again, you want to start in either that T pose or A pose that you set up your character with. So that way when you're retargeting the data onto your 3D model, your 3D model will likely start out in that T pose. So you can start with the data here, get it retargeted, and then begin the movement. Because if you just start recording and I'm out like here, you'd have to manually reshape that model to start in this pose. So it's a lot easier to just start with your data set up for how the model's going to be already. When you're recording, it's kind of easy to just think you can kind of just like walk around and do a bunch of like kind of boring movements. These trackers are pretty accurate, which means you can move quickly, dynamically, kind of however you want. So my favorite piece of equipment that we have here is the crash pad. You can do just like, yeah, don't hurt yourself, but you can have fun. I don't know. So yeah, if we want to start recording, and the best part, because it's only looking at these reflective dots, anything that is like in the space that isn't reflective, it's not going to see. So if I wanted to like have my character sit on a chair, I could just have a chair here and sit on it, but all the cameras see is me sitting on the chair. It doesn't know that the chair is there. So you can use props, you can interact with objects without that sort of like messing up your tracking data.
So what are we going to record?
What are we going to record? Does anyone have suggestions on what we should record? I'd love to do a backflip, except I don't know how, and that would be dangerous. Any other ideas? Yeah, I can do a cartwheel, so we'll do that one. But yeah, so start out in your T-pose. Let me know when it's going.
Recording.
Okay, sweet. Also, it's really nice to keep these recordings short. Thank you, thank you. But then once I'm done, I go back to where I started, hit the T-pose, and stop recording. You want to keep these short so that way when you're going back and like utilizing them, you don't have to watch through like a very, very long take. You can kind of just get exactly what you need, and then you can piece together those animations in your final project later. Now that we have our take, we can pop over to the, wait, can you, playback. Playback is super important. When you're in a session, you're going to be getting a lot of takes, and although we did have an exceptional setup, there is still the chance that there are some of those glitches that we were talking about. So it's important to always sort of go over to your playback and watch back on your footage. We want to watch it. And when you're watching this, pay really close attention to see if there's anything incorrect happening. Like, is there something wrong with the hands? Is the neck twisting in a weird way? And if there is, you then have to sort of make an on-the-fly decision. Is it easier for you to go back to the recording mode, record another take, and make sure that that's perfect? Or is it good enough that you can export this data into something like Motion Builder and maybe make those fine-tuned adjustments in post? That's sort of like, that's why we suggest doing shorter takes, because if you have a really, really long take, it's hard to catch all those smaller moments where it could have messed up. This is also like those shorter takes allow you to apply it to like a Mixamo avatar. That's why if you notice like a lot of those Mixamo like animations, they are short. They aren't like minute-long takes. They're really short so that you can use them in a wide variety of scenarios.
One big like glitch you'll often encounter is like the hands being inverted. This usually happens because the actor has stepped out of the scene. Like when Luke was picking up the crash pad earlier, his like the avatar in Motive was deforming a little bit. And sometimes Motive confuses itself when the actor steps back into the space, it won't know where the markers are. So if you're trying to troubleshoot why you're getting that type of glitch, it could be that, like that reason. Yeah.
Now time to export our data. When you go to export, there's two steps that you have to do. First, you have to solve your data. What that means, oh, yeah? Oh, okay, that's actually a good point. Can you go to the Builder tab? So it shows an A pose. Realistically, I think the only reason it does is so that it could have a tighter panel. It's really, this is just showing you where to put the trackers. If you look down the drop-down menu, we do have our pose set to T-pose. Yeah, no, that's a good point. I forgot to mention that. Yeah, but yeah, so when you're exporting, right now, the data that's actually in Motive isn't a skeleton. So like when you're using like a 3D character in like a game engine like Unreal, you're puppeting it using a skeleton or a rig that you have. Right now, this is just like a list of 3D vectors for each of these points. Like it's just like a list of 41 like points in 3D space. It's not actual like skeleton data. Solving your take, when you click solve all assets, that is what turns that list of 3D points into actual skeleton data that you can then use in another software. So it's important to make sure that you solve your take. It'll then pop up with that little blue dot next to it. That's how you know it's been solved. And then you can export your take out to use in other software. Format, we suggest using FBX binary. FBX is kind of a just like universal 3D animation format, so it's most likely going to be accepted by whatever software you're using. There are other ones. If you know the other ones and know that the software you're using will accept them, feel free. We just suggest using FBX because it's most common. So,
Right.
yeah.
So we're not going to export this, but once you've exported your data, what are the next steps? Well, typically you want to clean up your motion capture data. Any like jitters or glitches you don't want in your final animation. So you would import the data into things like Motion Builder or Maya to clean up all the points. You can also live stream your motion capture data to Unreal if you're having like a real-time performance in Unreal Engine. You can link it to Motive and use the data that way. You can also retarget different models, as Luke mentioned earlier. Like take that motion data and put it onto a model and reuse it for different things. And so much more. There's a lot of tutorials online on like how to do things with your data. So experiment with it. Right. So before you begin on your motion capture adventure, first you want to take the Media Commons safety training. So if you want to use our spaces, you do need to take safety training with us. You can find the safety training on our website. There will be a link at the end of this presentation. Also, make sure to bring an external drive. We mentioned this before, but it's very devastating when you save your stuff on our computer and it's gone the next week. So make sure you save at a safe location. Some extra items you can bring is a hair tie and avoid wearing shiny jewelry for your session. Hair ties are important for people with long hair because there are markers on the shoulders and on the back. If your hair is long and it covers these markers, your data will get interfered with. Always have a plan of what you want to record during your reservation. It might be fun to just come in and like do anything, but you need to plan your time a little bit. It does take a little bit to calibrate the room and then reset, so always come with a plan. And finally, bring a friend to help. Mentioned earlier, you do need a technician. It's impossible to be T-posing and hitting the record button at the same time, so bring a friend.
And personal tip, bring a pair of shorts. These are pretty tight. You usually can't wear them over pants, and personally, I'd rather not wear this in just my underwear. So whenever I'm doing mocap, I always bring a pair of shorts. It just, makes it a bit easier. Thank you. Yeah, if there's any questions, either about like specific things or more in general motion capture.
So you end the video with two posts?
Yeah. Mostly, so the reason you want to start and end is just for the retargeting onto your model. It's easier, especially at the beginning. It's very, very important to start in a T-pose. Ending in a T-pose just kind of helps you sort of like reset the character if you want it to maybe go into like flow into other animation.
So if I have like a sequence of low movement, do you suggest that I record it all, or is there a way that I record it by small sequence and I transfer it?
Like individual movements?
Yeah.
Sort of depends on what you're trying to perform. Like if this is like a full dance to one song, maybe try and record it all in one take. But if you're thinking about using like a bunch of different animations for like a game, like you want a walk cycle, a run cycle, an attack, you could record those all individually, and then in a game engine use like a a behavior tree to sort of. Yeah, like a state machine to sort of blend between those individual animations. And most game engines will have like built-in tools to do that. Not here. Yes, it is possible. So we run Motive 3.0. Motive 3.1 has a thing called trained data sets. So you know how we were saying there's like those default skeleton setups? In Motive 3.1, you can create your own data set, and that's sort of what people would use if they're trying to track like animals.
Yes. So
That is
today's
possible,
demo, we only did body tracking, but at the Media Commons, we do have Manus gloves for hand tracking and a Rococo head rig for face tracking, which like works with like your phone.
Mm-hmm.
One more. You mentioned in real time, you only mentioned Unreal, but does Unity also support this now? Do you know?
Sorry?
Does Unity have a live link plugin?
Oh, I'm not too clear on that.
I think so, but I'm not sure. I've only done it with Unreal.
As well, so.
Yeah. On the Motive website, they have like their documentation. Like, so if you go to the Motive documentation page, there'll be a tab for something called Live Link, and then they have links to all of their individual plugins. So, yeah.
I noticed for this recording there's like transforming like axis, but if I want animation where like the character is still in one position, is that possible?
Still in what
Like
position?
one like XYZ position instead of like right now in the
Oh, like
Oh.
it like stays in.
right. So it's like when we're walking maybe just in the same.
You're gonna need like a treadmill. Yeah.
Or
There's no way to edit that maybe.
you could probably edit that in like Motion Builder. Most skeletons, like the root bone is around the hips. So if you like edit individually just that root bone to have like, if you just remove all like positional keyframes, like all the other bones are kind of parented to that hip. If you keep that still, it should keep the entire character still, I think. Like, I'm not an expert, that's just how I'd go about it.
I've noticed before, like looking at the behind the scenes of Avatar, that to get like the hair pieces and the tail pieces, they literally had those like strapped on in weird sort of ways so that they could kind of record like the motion of it like in movement, especially for like. I have two questions. Firstly, is there any kind of hair tracking that exists? Because I know that's usually one of the hardest things for games to like figure out. And the second thing is, if you have like a weird, if your character, let's say, has like a really weird piece of clothing or something, can you like put some like wear something and then put the tracker on that in a sort of way, or does it block anything else?
Yeah, this kind of, okay, for your first question for hair, no. This kind of relates to the animal question earlier. With our current version of Motive, you can't really do like those custom like tracking. For like clothes and stuff, I would recommend you just animate it yourself. Motion capture is not really the best for things like that, especially if it like folds on top of itself and then the cameras get confused when it can't find the markers. So yeah, unfortunately, it'd be very difficult.
Yeah. 3.1 does have options for tracking like rope and stuff, but it works more so like a chain. Like it's just like a straight line connected to a straight line connected to a straight line. Again, we don't have 3.1, so you can't do it here, but technically, yes. Yeah.
We are working on getting the mocap in the audio lab working. Oh, it is working. Okay, it is working. So I guess if you know how to work on Unreal Engine or whatever program, like Touch Designer or something, it's possible, very possible.
Yeah. Final questions? Yeah. If you wanted, are you talking about only doing like some fingers? I don't think so. The Manus gloves you can pair with like a normal, like a suit. So when we were talking about like doing hand tracking and face tracking, you can wear all three of these things together. So I could be in the suit with all the dots, wearing a face rig with the gloves on, and that would capture like a ton of detail. I don't think we can do just like 2 fingers though. There are some, if you, under the builder, they have some like options with hands, right? Under like
passive and active.
yeah. So, oh, that's also something we could mention right now, just briefly. This is a passive tracking setup, meaning all of these cameras, when we were saying they were looking for reflections, they're like shooting out infrared light that's bouncing off of these. Active tracking would be wearing little dots that emit the light themselves. So Planet of the Apes uses active tracking when they're filming outdoors, because when you're outside, there's just so much light going on that it's like not bright enough to just do reflection, so that's why they'd use active tracking.
But back on your like fingers thing, it's really just recommended you like post, like while you're editing the data, you can like manually, it might be really cumbersome, but like manually remove whatever you don't need.
Yeah. Anything else? Yeah. The link.
Oh,
Huh.
but it doesn't work on mobile.
Oh.
Sorry about that. Yeah, you're gonna have to like log in with your NYU email on a laptop.
Yeah.
So take a picture of that if you need it for later.
Yeah. Good. All right. Well, thank you guys for coming. We hope you enjoyed.
You learn.
Yeah. Hope you learned something. Hope to see you guys around the Media Commons in the future.